Hello everyone. I am Courtney here with Sage RavenStar, woman with the coolest name ever, who is a part of the Plant Medicine People coaching team and who is our resident crone, which I think is a badge of honor. And you and I have a similar mission that we are reclaiming that archetype as something women should aspire to, not be afraid of. So let's start with defining the archetype. What does the crone mean to you? It can mean different things to all of us, but can you give language to the magic of this archetype?
Hmm. It's interesting because um, one of the things that comes to mind as soon as you say that is the hag. It's like the crone, the hag, the wise woman. But a big part of what has been coming up for me is almost like bringing back that energy of, you know, the amalgamation of all of it, the crone, the wise woman, the elder, the grandmother, the hag, you know, and as well, it's like this embodiment. I'm still like all those other parts of me, but it's like the crone is the one that kind of holds and advises and connects to and guides all the other parts that are working through their stuff. So, and then it's just like it's almost as well letting it's like this unlearning is happening because you're stepping beyond that societal idea of who you were, and it's spiraling back to being the fool, back to being the child, back to being that who I originally came here to be, sort of thing. Not letting go of all the other pieces in between. And it's a both and thing, right? So that's it in a little bit of a nutshell. I could go on, but that would be the nutshell.
So what I love about what you brought in is typically we emphasize, of course, the wisdom and the maturity that comes with getting to the privilege of reaching the stage of crone, which not every woman gets to do. But you're also emphasizing the fact that, and this is obviously the journey of the tarot, that as we go through all of the stages and archetypes, we come back to the innocence and awe that the fool or the child represents. And that's not often emphasized in the definition of the crone, that we get to come back to like, whoa, I'm conscious and alive. And I have all this life experience and maturity now to draw on as well. It is a circular, like homecoming in that way. Um, Not everybody probably knows this, that crone as a word references crown, references queendom.
That's what I was thinking, Queen.
Yep. And also just I love the symbolism of the crown chakra in the crone, that the crown also it represents not just the regalness of, hey, you've lived, you deserve respect, but also wisdom, like wisdom.
Mm.
And my favorite aspect, at least right now, of the crone archetype is that as we mature into this space as a woman, we care less and less what other people think. It's finally
So
our
much so.
time, yeah, to go, I don't care. I get to be me. So can you speak to that part?
Yeah, yeah, and, it's not denying that all those other parts, because, I mean, part of, getting to the place of wisdom is recognizing that, the healing and the shedding and all of that doesn't stop, it's like these aspects of ourselves or these child parts or these conditioned and programmed parts or this worry and all that, it's there and sometimes it comes in, but there is this other I've it's like this basket that I've been gathering and collecting, and you look back at all these things that you have made it through, and it's like then you're able to hold those parts of yourself. It's not like those parts don't come up, because I mean, personally, I mean, stepping into new things. That's the key too, is that yes, you get to this place of wisdom and it's there and it's bigger. And as you continue, I'm just a baby crone. So it's kind of like as you continue to step into that place of that connectedness with everything and knowing you're never alone and you have all your tools and everything, there's still, it's like, oh, that's there, that's okay, and embrace the mess rather than resist it. And I'm also going to fall into the mess, and the child might want to come out to the front seat, and I need to just sort of give that messy child some space too. So it's like not pushing. I think that's the key, is learning, and it doesn't stop. It's not like, oh, I've got this wisdom now, it. And I think that's the key, is just continuing to be open and curious and continuing to take risks, no matter what age you are. And at the same time, it's gonna trigger old stuff, but that part of you that is gathered the wisdom, she gets stronger and bigger, and she is more of a presence than the little parts, it's they're all sitting together, I don't know how else to say that.
It's beautiful because again, it's the reminder that as any of us mature into the archetype of Crone, it's not as if the maiden and the mother and all the other parts are gone. They're
Exactly.
still present and integrated in the dance of, the just the blessing of getting to evolve our consciousness to the place where we have all of these archetypes readily available. We're not stuck in one or the other. It's like there's so many parts that are present to
Yeah.
come play and express themselves. And the crone almost feels like, even though, the genesis of the typical female archetype is maiden to mother to crone, the crone almost feels like the mother of all of them, even the mother of the mother, just the
Yes.
wisdom keeper, and allows them all to come to surface and play and use their voices when it is time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as if you just become a crone. All the other parts are still there.
Exactly. And it's also, there's this knowing of the ones, it's like the presence of the grandmothers before you and the presence of the old stories of the grandmothers and of the whole, of how I just keep that idea of, I keep going back to the hag, or the one that comes into the village, or is in the village and is more quiet. There's no need to be big leader. There's no need. It's just like this presence of being Earth herself, and knowing that we're held and knowing that we're part of it all. And we're still little human beings trying to play the game and being able to navigate the new things that come up, because I'll never stop being open to stepping into the new things. And I know that there's all of these other energies. And I think that's a piece that I wanted to bring in too, is that um, it's inviting us to, as a collective, to bring back, like you said at the beginning, um, the value of a crone and the value of, the wise woman, and the value of those elders. And so many of us, especially in my generation, well, in many generations, we carry that old story of, okay, well, we could just ship you off. You're useless now. And being able to reinvite that there's a lot here. I mean, if you think about all the grandmothers in the world, you put them together, imagine the, the change that we would have, sort of thing. And so it's like bringing that back, but then we got to clear all the old shit that's there. We got to clear all the old stuff, and that's the part that makes it difficult to actually really embody the wisdom of the crone, because so often, because we've been pushed for so much to repress and suppress and be quiet and hold back and, all of that stuff, we forget the value that we have, and we get locked into old stories. And, it's like, and then the fear of the system keeps us separated from that which is the mother, the grandmother, all that is, sort of thing. Anyway, that's kind of it feels so big right now of the importance of, especially as the younger generations. I love merging. I do something with my daughter of she's the spinster and I'm the hag, and working with younger women as well, because it's kind of like getting that place of looking at aging in a whole different way. Instead of we're aging, we're saging, sort of thing, that kind of thing. So, and it's work that we got to do. It's not easy. So, yeah, just wanted to add.
Listening to you speak makes me think of, looking at our Western culture, the United States in particular. It's really painful to watch some of our, celebrity archetypes, the women age into the crone stage and cling to the archetype of maiden. Ironically, the one, I don't want to pick on her because she's amazing, but Madonna is this crone that's trying to be not only a maiden but like a really young maiden in all the different ways, and it feels so painful, not just like what I feel for her as an individual to not be able to embrace who she is as a woman now, and ironically her name Madonna and the archetype that that references, right? But
Yeah.
also what it means as a culture is that we have imprinted this expectation on women to stay in one archetype and to not honor the amazing transformation that happens in our bodies and to fear that. So my question for you is, can you give language to the pain, the damage that that creates in a culture when we don't embrace and honor the crone? You were mentioning like what would happen if we got all the grandmothers together. We could change the world, but like what happens in our culture as a result of that?
Well, it's funny because I was pulling some cards yesterday, and it's almost like, well, as within, so without, right? So whatever goes on inside of us is what is going on outside of us. So, and one of the decks that I have, she's meeting the wolf, and she's closing her eyes and she's offering a part of herself to merge with the wolf. And yet, um, if she does not trust that wild and the earth, and trust that that wildness, and that natural organic, yeah, the wildness, then it's like we become this almost like pillars, separate pillars, and there is no like unity with that wildness. And I think that's the piece that, you know with the repression of that, it's almost like we become more submissive to those energies and powers that keep it separate and keep that delineation and the destruction of the earth, and of humanity, period, and mental health and depression and addictions, and because we lose a sense of our own self. I mean, I see it all the time, it's like it breaks my heart, because it's like it's that you stay in contraction, but you never give birth, because the resistance is too big. So then we can never birth the new worlds that want to come in, and so there is no, and so if we stay in that place, then we can't become bigger, we can't become wider, we can't really, that love that a grandmother, that an elder has, it's bigger because it's spread out, the threads of connection. It's like that spider, right? And it's just that, yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but it just feels to me like it's almost like it keeps us in this place of polarity and duality, and we don't find that place where we're in the center and we can just sort of be that wildness, and walk beside the wolf, or become the tree, or become, we lose that ability to be connected, you know?
Yeah, that's a really, when you said we stay in contraction and don't get to give birth, like bing, that feels like it's just stays in this place of conflict
Yeah.
rather than the expansion into that unity that you're describing and the embracing of the wildness. And I was working with ayahuasca not that long ago about this, just I'm turning 50, as you know, this year, and just like really, that's such a marker of just stepping into like the baby energy of Crone, but still. And the way she put it, as usual, is pretty brilliant. She was like, yeah, what happens in a culture that doesn't embrace the crone is it asks the maiden to and the mother to stay in insecurity, to
Mhm.
stay. And the thing that the crone starts to embody is like, oh, I am who I am, and this is what I came to be, and I am one with nature. And like it's the place where we're supposed to fulfill our soul's mission. But if we stay in insecurity of, oh, actually, I'm supposed to look like I'm 25,
Yeah,
and then we don't get to have that maturity. It is very much what you described as staying in contraction and not giving birth. We don't give
yeah,
birth ourselves. We
yeah,
stay clinging to an old version that wants to become something else, and we don't allow it to happen. And a lot of that, I think, her word insecurity feels really appropriate because we're told by society that the crone is the worst thing to be. Oh my God, fight tooth and nail. Don't be that. And our souls are like, what? It's a privilege. This is the good stuff. This is
yeah,
where we get to finally be authentic. So that conflict, and it impacts the entire society. It's not just
absolutely.
individual is harmed, the whole society is harmed, because then we cast aside the women who have the wisdom and we
Yeah,
silence them. And look at the mess that we have right now.
yeah.
It's a big
Yeah,
piece.
and when you say about menopause too, it's kind of like, I'm 62 now, and it's kind of like I thought 50 was like, and it's almost like 50 is like that sort of portal that you begin. It's like that menopause is like that rites of passage where you begin even shedding even more of the old identities, like you walk away from the 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 identities that we took on because of whatever we took on from when we were born, right? And then as we continue to do our work, it's like this, oh wow, I am not that. I am not that either. And you go beyond that identity. And so to me, it's like, well, of course, there is this with like getting older, and they program us to be like that because if we really did embody it and move through that rites of passage, like that which we get connected to and the wisdom, even like being able to connect with the wisdom of the plant medicines and all that is earth, but also the stars and all the archetypes. It's kind of like that's also held within that contraction. It's like it doesn't have that freedom to flow. And that's the whole idea of, just opening that. It's like the water, right? It's like clearing out the debris so the water can just flow, and then we become the water, and then, it just ripples out everywhere, sort of thing. So it's like, yeah, it's like if we could start redefining even that whole idea of, like you say, aging and menopause, and sometimes it's really hard. It's like there are times where I'm like, oh my God, my hair's starting to get, and oh, I can feel I'm starting to, and it's like, oh yes, 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 that is programming. What the trees don't do that. They're beautiful when they get older, and just watching the seasons and allowing nature to be my reference point. Often it's like, well, what would nature do? How is nature? And then how is the community of that ecosystem? It's almost like that. You become more of an ecosystem rather than this individual tree planted in the cement in the middle of a city. You become this ecosystem, and your roots start going like mycelium, like underneath the ground. You start connecting, right? But I mean, that's how we build healthy ecosystems, right? Is we just let it all flow and we expand. But we got to move through those passages and get that old garbage out of the way in order to do that. And it's not easy. That's why we need support. That's why we need community. That's the key. If that was one of the things, it's like trust and community. Those are huge of learning to trust again and learning to allow ourselves to be seen for all we are. Like, and that's not easy. That's where we need our allies in our community, like whatever allies that looks like, human and otherwise, right? It's not an easy journey. I mean, that's the truth of it, because we have a whole collective society in the West that is like No, no, and I think that's why the the North and South are coming together, you know, because it's kind of like we need those reference points of the beauty of elders and the beauty of the grandmothers and the beauty of what they have to offer. And the more we bring that in, the more that we can, it's almost like spreading it out, like mycelium, right?
What ayahuasca showed me in that journey where I was really working with the archetype of Crone is that when we live in a culture that represses and judges that, we stay perpetually immature. We just keep
Yeah,
repeating the same suffering pain points, the same lessons, because we're not bringing
yeah,
in the people, especially the women, who hold the life experience to go, actually, there's a different way to do it. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
better way to do a more unified way, a more
yeah,
space that comes from love that is about everybody benefiting rather than the game of win-lose.
yeah,
And gosh, if that isn't just a perfect sort of reflection of what we're dealing with in our world, it just gets louder and louder
yeah.
what is happening with this conflict, this crone, the way we treat the women with wisdom. So here's a fun thing to ponder then. It's the opposite of the question I just asked. What do you envision is possible in a world where we shift this perspective and uplift the wisdom of the crone? What does that look like?
Ooh, it's funny because I have this thing on my wall as soon as you said that, and it says Wild Woman Rising, and it says Goddess, Warrior, Healer, Rebel. And it's like that sort of that what freedom truly means. You know, yes, we're always playing in this game, and it's learning how, you know, Wild Woman Rising. Okay, I'm going back to your question. And it's almost like this. I see these like these plants coming out of the ground, and I see like new life, you know, coming out. And it's almost this sense of I still see ecosystems. I still see like not just humans as ecosystems, but since we are a reflection, nothing is separate, right? So as we build our own internal ecosystems, and then our ecosystems within our small communities, our families and our communities, then it's like it goes out and out and out, you know? And one of the things just before you asked was I was thinking about when I turned 50 was when I started like working in cycles and understanding that we move in cycles, you know, of following the seasons. We become, it's like humans, what was it, in her book, um, Braiding Sweetgrass, and she said about how humans are the loneliest species on the planet because we have forgotten how to communicate. And that's the piece, is as we embrace the cycles of our lives and we move into the north of being crone, then it's like we can actually then move into this place of it's not linear, it's spiral, right? So we continue to move into this place of then sharing that wisdom in the east, that freshness, that sun rising, you know? So then there's this new life that can start coming that is born from a place that is more connected to the whole than is just this holding in, you know? And just quickly, the piece that keeps coming up is when I did turn 50 was when I looked at, you know, because the work that I do a lot of times is the 9-year cycles. And you had said how we stay stuck in our old archetype, like the old archetypes. And it's almost like we create new myths. We could create new stories and new archetypes and connect to, you know, the bigger picture of it all rather than our own individual stories. And when we look at the 9 years and we go back, it's like, what kind of archetypal energies am I carrying forward? You know, and for me, I noticed different people, different jobs, different stories, but the same archetypal energies. And if we notice that, then it's like, what new energies do we want to start bringing forth in the world? What archetypes do we want to expand? You know, and there's some pretty wild, wonderful possibilities, and they're all possible, It's just that we got to start in here, right? It's like that's the charge of the goddess too. If you don't do it inside, it's not going to change outside. It has to start within. We have to let go of it. And yeah, that requires a forest, not just, a forest of humans, a forest of, and a literal forest, but it's like, so I don't know if that answered your question, but it just kind of all comes together, it feels like to me. It just brings it more to that interconnectedness, back to that place of unity. Yeah, with all beings, all sentient beings.
Yeah, with
Mhm.
us as humans and our relationship with nature too. That's what strikes me listening to you speak is it comes back to that core wounding of our separateness from nature, and how much that hurts our world. And it's really beautiful to see the correlation between the relationship with the crone, the respect and admiration of the crone, and how that energy creates that sense of unification. It makes me think of so my late great teacher Howard Lawler would take us on a Wachuma journey to this tree in something called the mythical forest of the moon in Peru. And she's like at least 1,500 years old. And as the medicine is coming on, we just sit with her and listen. Like, what if we did that with our grandmothers? Like, really just sat and listened and we're
Incredible.
super attentive to the wisdom coming through instead of put them in a home because we're afraid that we're going to become that because we've been programmed to believe it's something scary rather than something thrilling and beautiful and
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah,
So yeah, that unification, it's been the thread that you keep mentioning around this archetype that I think is sort of not spoken about as often and yet feels really, really true and powerful. So thank you for that, Sage. Thank you for yeah, just being part of the movement to reclaim the pride, the awe, the respect of the crone because it does benefit all of us, nature included, if we
yeah.
change our narrative around how we view, a woman who gets to age and embody her wisdom. So thank you for this
You're
beautiful
welcome.
discussion. Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, that
Yeah.
we could probably go on and on and on.
We could, maybe
It's
we'll do a
wonderful
part
to be
two.
able to tap into it. It's really wonderful, because it just every time we even talk about it, it's like we invite her in and we invoke that grandmother, that elder, that wise woman, It's like we just the more we can talk about it together and the more we can share it together, the more we invoke her and the more forward she comes and the more she becomes more physical in our tangible reality, right? It's like, yeah, it's beautiful. I'm really glad that we were able to have this conversation for sure.
It is an honor to illuminate her all the more with you. Yeah,
Very
thank you.
cool.
Yeah. If any of you love Sage's wisdom as much as I do, there's information below on how to work with her as a spiritual mentor. She's an incredible tarot communicator and a friend of the plants, clearly.
Mhm.
But thank you all for listening. Be well out there, Sage. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you.